Hey girls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today's video is going to be a list of some of my most anticipated April book releases. Now, I will have all of the information for these books listed down below in the description box, as well as I will have the release date and title on screen with me as I am talking about them. So let's grab a snack, grab a drink, because I have a lot of releases to talk about for this video. So let's just go ahead and get started. April's very stacked, and the beginning of the month, April 1st, is a very heavy book release date. So the first book that I have to talk about is coming out April 1st, and that is The Sirens by Emilia Hart. I have read and enjoyed Wayward from this author, and this book also seems like it is playing with time. It's a little bit fantasy, maybe a little bit gothic horror, I'm not too sure, but it's got some historical elements to time periods. We have 2019 and 1800, and it's a story of sisters separated by hundreds of years but bound together in more ways than they can imagine. Now, 2019, we have a sister who is running away from an ex-partner who was abusive, and she goes to her sister's town, and it seems like a very strange, surreal sort of town, and she starts having very interesting and very vivid dreams. And in 1800, we also are following sisters, and Mary and Eliza are torn from their loving home in Ireland, forced on a convict ship heading for Australia. As the boat takes them farther and farther away from all they know, they begin to notice unexplainable changes in their bodies. It's a breathtaking tale of female resilience, and what I liked about Wayward is the fact that while there were multiple points of view and very different time periods, I really liked the way that they fit together to make a cohesive story. I'm really interested in, I don't think this is going to be horror. I feel like this is more magical realism fantasy, but I have been on a historical horror, historical speculative fiction kick this year, so I am really looking forward to checking out this one. The cover is great, and I'm really looking forward to reading another book by the author of Wayward. Next book coming out the first is one of my most anticipated of the year, and that would be Gifted and Talented by Olivie Blake. This is about three siblings who, upon the death of their father, are forced to reckon with their long festering rivalries, dangerous abilities, and the crushing weight of all their unrealized adolescent potential. The blurb for this says, "On the pipeline of gifted kid to clinically depressed adult, nobody wins, but which Wren," that's their family name, "which Wren sibling is going to come out on top?" It's urban fantasy, a little bit dark academia-ish, I feel like. I'm really interested in the sibling dynamic. I feel like Olivie Blake does that really, really well. I like her urban fantasy and hints of the paranormal, but also in-depth conversations about academia and just knowledge is very fascinating. And I really also want to read more about this conversation that it looks like this book is going to have about the existential worry that as a younger adult, maybe you feel like you're worried about, that you're not living up to the potential that your parents or yourself or society put upon you as a child. I'm really intrigued. I love a good inheritance story, and it looks like all three of these siblings are telepathically and electrokinetically gifted, so we're going to have fantastical elements as well, so super excited. Next up, also coming out April 1st, we have Heartwood by Amity Gaige, and this one is a literary mystery or thriller that I'm interested in because of the blurbs to God in the Woods, and I really, really loved that mystery, so I'm thinking maybe this one will be more of the same. Heartwood takes you on a gripping journey as a search and rescue team race against time when an experienced hiker mysteriously disappears on the Appalachian Trail in Maine. And I'm also been really interested in Appalachian horror and mysteries and thrillers, so I feel like I could really enjoy this one. It says it's not only the story of a lost hiker's odyssey, but a moving rendering of each character's interior journey. The The mystery inspires larger questions about the many ways in which we get lost and how we are found. So I really feel like the blend of literary mystery is going to work for me. I'm definitely intrigued by the literary mystery elements of this one, and also reading a book set in the Appalachian Trail in Maine. The next book coming out the 1st of April is One of You by Erin E. Adams, and this is about a mysterious outsider who torments two Haitian American sisters, forcing them to confront dark secrets from their family's past. In this powerful psychological suspense novel from the acclaimed author of Jackal, What Would You Sacrifice to Become American? We're following two sisters and their mother unexpectedly dies in the proceedings of the wake and the burial and the funeral. They meet a family friend who claims to be a family friend that they have never heard of, that they've never heard their mother talk about, but this stranger seems to know a whole lot about them, and mysterious things start happening in the house. There's a disfigured doll appearing in their attic, childhood photos vanishing, and a mysterious illness. They have to question the role of this stranger in all of these unsettling events, and what they learn could threaten the bedrock of their entire family. This is a horror and a mystery, and I have heard nothing but great things about Jackal. I'm actually planning on reading it in April or May for a reading vlog, so this one also sounds very scary and very engaging. So far, it's very interesting to see that a lot of these books have to deal with family legacy and inheritance, and maybe a speculative horror spin on that. And then the last book coming out the 1st of April is Deadstream by Romasco-Moore, and this one is YA, and I typically read adult and not YA, but the reason why this one is on my radar is that this is a technological horror, and it says it's for fans of The Ring, and The Ring is one of my favorite horror movies. It's a movie that got me into horror, so the comparisons to that one I'm super intrigued by. I love a cursed film, a cursed technology type of horror, so I am really interested in that. After surviving a car accident that claimed the life of her best friend, Teresa is now terrified to leave the safety of her bedroom. Since then, her only solace and window to the outside world has been the online community she found through streaming. But one night, a shadowy figure appears in the background of her favorite streamer's video, and he mysteriously dies in front of thousands of viewers. Teresa finds herself at the center of a life and death investigation as this creature, this figure, starts appearing in other people's streams and asking them to open the door and let them in, including Teresa's own. So haunted technology and a kind of technological curse passed from one person to the other definitely sounds very The Ring-like, so I'm definitely interested in checking this one out. The next book on my radar comes out April 8th, and that is Cold Eternity by S.A. Barnes. I will say there is a blurb here that I think is a little like spoilery, because I read like the synopsis and it doesn't mention a big component that is in the blurb. So for this one, I don't know if I love the blurb kind of giving something away that the synopsis doesn't, but either way, this sounds really interesting. Hallie is on the run from an interplanetary political scandal that has put a huge target on her back. She heads for what seems like the perfect place to lay low, a gigantic space barge housing the cryogenically frozen bodies of Earth's most wealthy citizens. The ship and the cryo program are long since defunct, but Hallie starts to think she sees figures crawling in the hallways, and there's a rattling, a scraping, and a slithering coming from within the vents. It's not long before Hallie realizes she may have gotten herself trapped in an even more dangerous situation than the one she was running from. I can always count on S.A. Barnes to have like a very creepy atmosphere in space that kind of evokes like alien vibes. So I am really interested in reading this one. I'm very curious to see how this one goes for me. I really loved, in particular Dead Silence. I thought that was such a great ghost story, like a ghost story set in space. This one seems very terrifying as well. The next book on my radar comes out April 15th, and that is The Death of Us by Abigail Dean. I've read from and enjoyed this author before, and the premise of this one sounds very interesting. It's the story of a marriage turned inside out by a violent encounter that sets fire to the hairline faults that were there from the start. Late on a summer's evening, when they are 30 years old, husband and wife, Edward and Isabel's home is invaded by a serial killer. Theirs was a classic story of young love that moves into true partnership, but their solid foundation implodes in the wake of this violence. Fast forward to they're now 58, they're reunited for their tormentor's trial and are forced to confront their love and also the horrific event that kind of broke apart their entire marriage. Isabel has waited years for this. She's wanted him to get caught. She really wants to be a part of the trial and help bring him to justice, while Edward has spent the years since the break-in and the breakdown of his marriage trying to get a new start, move on, and not really think about this traumatic incident. So this is a captivating portrait of a marriage told through the lens of the explosive, violating moment that catalyzed its implosion. And I'm really interested to see kind of the crime courtroom drama, but also focusing on not necessarily the serial killer and the crimes that the serial killer has committed, but how something so tragic could impact someone's life, even if they weren't like victims in the they were killed sense. The fact that this is something that has vastly shaped and changed their lives forever. So I think this one will be very interesting. Also coming out April 15th, we have Friends the Museum by Heather McGowan, and this one is one that I really love the cover. I love covers that are either works of pre-existing art or that are pieces that are created to look like classic art pieces. So I really love this cover, and this seems like such an interesting and fun premise. So we follow co-workers at a legendary but troubled New York City museum as they struggle with issues both large and small over the course of one extraordinary day. So I'm intrigued by that setup. It's the day of the museum's annual gala, and by daybreak, someone is going to be dead. It's wise, surprising, and darkly funny. Friends the Museum is a kaleidoscopic, tragic comedy that surges along to the unstoppable tick of the clock, leaving you on the edge of your seat until the final second. So I really am intrigued by the setup of this one. I like that it follows a variety of employees over a single day. There's going to be mayhem. I just have a good feeling about this one. I don't know if it's just because the cover kind of reminds me of some of my favorite books with similar covers, or just the premise just sounds fun and fresh and unique, and I'm really excited. People like Mona Awad, who wrote Bunny, have blurbed this one, so I think this one's going to be just a darkly funny, very interesting time. We are now moving into the latter half of the month with the next book coming out on April 22nd, and that would be This Summer I Ate the Rich by Maika and Maritza Moulite. And this one, the cover also kind of drew me in a very different way than the last cover, but the cover and the title I'm really intrigued by, because this is a young adult horror about zombies, and this is a smart and biting novel that explores what happens when a Haitian American girl uses her previously hidden zombie abilities to exact revenge on the wealthy elites who have caused her family pain. So I'm really intrigued. It's a modern day fable inspired by Haitian zombie lore that scrutinizes the socioeconomic and racial inequity that is the foundation of our society. Just like Brielle, our main character's clients, it will have you asking what's for dinner, and I've mentioned this before, but I have a feeling this year, years to come, we're going to see a lot of horror, because horror is obviously reflective of our current political environment and just the world around us, as horror explores real life fears of people. I think we're gonna see a lot of cannibalism. I think we're going to see a lot of eat the rich type of stories and just a lot of hunger based horror. So I'm really intrigued by this one. I haven't read zombie fiction in quite some time. time because I don't love post-apocalyptic books that much. However, this doesn't seem like it's that. This seems like it's a very different take on zombies than I'm used to, and I'm really intrigued to try it out. And continuing on with that theme that I just talked about, also coming out the 22nd, we have Eat the Ones You Love by Sarah Maria Griffin. This is a very different take on hunger-based horror, but it's an intriguing one. It's a twisted, tangled story about workplace love affairs and plants with a taste for human flesh. I think this is kind of like, it's horror fantasy. It also feels a little bit Little Shop of Horrors. But during a grocery run to her local shopping center, Shell sees a help needed sign in a flower shop window. She's just left her fiance, lost her job, moved back home in with her parents, and she has to make a change and bring some good into her life. So she goes inside, takes a chance, and she realizes right away that flowers are just the good thing she's been looking for, as is Neve, the beautiful florist who wrote the sign asking for help. However, Neve needs Shell a lot more than Shell could possibly imagine. There's an orchid growing out of sight in the heart of the mall who is watching them closely. His name is Baby, and the beautiful florist belongs to him. He's young, he's hungry, and he'll do just about anything to make sure he can keep growing big and strong. He adores Neve and wants to consume her, and will stop at nothing to eat the one he loves. So definitely feeling a little bit Little Shop of Horrors, has that hunger-based horror. I'm really intrigued to get to this one, so I'll definitely be checking out this book. Really excited for all the hunger-based horror. Next up, coming out the 22nd, is one of my most anticipated releases from the author that wrote one of my very favorite books of last year, and that is Nat Cassidy's When the Wolf Comes Home. And this is a book about werewolves. So excited to get to this one. One night, Jess, a struggling actress, finds a 5-year-old runaway hiding in the bushes outside her apartment. After a violent, bloody encounter with the boy's father, she and the boy find themselves running for their lives. As they attempt to evade the boy's increasingly desperate father, horrifying incidents of butchery follow them. At first, Jess thinks she understands what they're up against, but she's about to learn there's more to these surreal and grisly events than she could have ever imagined. I've not read anything by Nat Cassidy that I haven't absolutely loved. I think that werewolves, we need more werewolf fiction. I love vampires, but I just think, you know, maybe it's time to let werewolves have their shot. I desperately am always looking for more werewolf novels, so I'm super excited that Nat Cassidy is coming out with one. Love the cover, super intrigued to read this one. I absolutely cannot wait. The last book that is coming out the 22nd is The Pretender by Jo Harkin, and I did tell y'all I was on a little bit of a historical horror kick, and this one is just historical, but I am really intrigued by it as well. It's a sweeping historical novel that is set during the time of the Tudors' ascent. I like the Tudor period of history. I'm really fascinated by it, and I've read a lot of nonfiction and some fiction about this time period, but I am interested in this one. It tells the story of Lambert Simnel, who was raised in obscurity as a peasant boy to protect his identity and safety, who was believed to be the heir of the throne occupied by Richard III, and briefly crowned at the age of 10 as King Edward VI, one of the last of the Plantagenets. It's inspired by a footnote to history, the true story of the little-known Simnel, who was a figurehead of the 1487 Yorkist Rebellion and ended up working as a spy in the court of King Henry VII. The Pretender is historical fiction at its finest, and it's comparing it to Hilary Mantel and Maggie O'Farrell, and I'm just really interested in this one. I am so fascinated by the history around the Tudor period and just the political turmoil and everything going on about that time. I think this is going to be a really fascinating look at maybe one of the things that isn't as broadly talked about as other very famous historical things that happened during that era. So I really am intrigued by this one and cannot wait to check it out. And speaking of historical horror, next up we have coming out on the 23rd, The Rotting Room by Viggy, Parr, Hampton. And this is historical religious horror. and its comp titles are The First Omen, Immaculate, and Suspiria, and we are following Sister Raphaela, who is a newcomer to the cloistered Sisters of Divine Innocence. She yearns for redemption from her horrific past. However, her new abbey, bound by a vow of silence and a disturbing burial ritual, hides its own sinister secrets. I love historical horror. I love a good religious horror, and in particular, I really loved The First Omen, so I'm definitely really excited to check this book out. And then moving on to the last couple of books, we have coming out the 29th of April, Julie Chan is Dead by Liann Zhang, and this is about a young woman who steps into her deceased twin's influencer life, only to discover dark secrets hidden behind her social media facade. So we have twin sisters. I believe they were separated at birth, and they didn't figure out they were twins until later on in life. One of them is a very successful influencer, and when she dies, her twin tries to like take over her life a little bit, I think, because she is not as wealthy and as privileged as her twin. And not in the way that like the twin killed her twin, but when Julie discovers Chloe's lifeless body under mysterious circumstances, she seizes the chance to live the life she has always envied and wished for. Transforming into her sister is a lot easier than she suspected. However, Julie soon realizes that Chloe's seemingly picture-perfect life was anything but. So I think this is a really intriguing premise for a thriller. Just like the identity swap of it all is intriguing, and I'm so curious to see like what this book about. It just sounds like a fun and intriguing thriller premise. Next up is a book that may already be out in your region of the world and also has a couple of different titles. So coming out on the 29th of April in the US, in the UK it has already been released, and I actually have an Illumicrate cover of it, and I will put up the regular cover as well because this is a special edition that I already have and I'm excited about. But that is Bat Eater, and depending on where you are, it's either just called Bat Eater in the UK, and then the US version, the title is Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zeng by Kylie Lee Baker. And this one has to deal with the anti-Asian hate and the rise of hate crimes of Asian Americans in America during the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is one I know a lot of people are not ready to read about COVID just yet. So obviously this one's going to feature very heavily about that topic and about just the horrific rise of anti-Asian hate and hate crimes. And we're following our main character whose sister is murdered in a hate crime. I believe she's trying to figure out who did this to her sister. I think there are other deaths that connect her sister to other related incidents and deaths in the area. And it's also about hungry ghosts and a hungry ghost festival, which is why I haven't actually read this one yet, because this Hungry Ghost Festival takes place in either July or August every year, and I just think this will be a really perfect summer horror read. But Cora Zeng is a crime scene cleaner washing away the remains of brutal murders and suicides in Chinatown. None of that seems so terrible to her though, because she's already witnessed the most horrific thing possible. Her sister Delilah was pushed in front of a train. Before fleeing the scene, the murderer shouted 2 words: Bat Eater. So bloody messes don't really bother Cora. She's more bothered by the germs on the subway railing, the bare hands of a stranger, the hidden viruses in every corner, and the bite marks on her coffee table. Of course, ever since Delilah was killed in front of her, Cora can't be sure what's real and what's in her head. She pushes away all feelings and ignores the advice of her aunt to attend the Hungry Ghost Festival. She cannot ignore the dread in her stomach as she keeps finding bat carcasses at crime scenes she's cleaning up, or the scary fact that all of her recent cleanups have been the bodies of East Asian women, as Cora will soon learn you can't just ignore hungry ghosts. So this one's going to be super hard hitting. It's obviously going to deal with not only a pandemic, which is really heavy. All of us obviously have some sort of trauma from that experience, but then also the uniquely horrific experience of not only having to go through a pandemic, but being targeted because you are East Asian. So I think this one's going to be really heavy hitting, but very fascinating. It says it's for families hands of Stephen Graham Jones, so I'm definitely looking forward to reading this one. Like I said before, the Hunger Ghost Festival, it's set during July or August, depending on calendar year, so I think this will be a really perfect summer horror. And then last but not least, The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig. This one I've actually already read an ARC copy of, and I did enjoy it. This is definitely for fans of creepypasta. It very much reads like a combination of a bunch of creepypasta stories, and we are following a group of friends. They're friends in the 80s, they're teenagers, and they go camping one night and they discover a staircase in the woods. This staircase has not been there before, and they're very intrigued. One of their friends climbs the staircase, disappears, never to have been seen again. However, now, very many years later, it's present day, all of our main characters are adults but still reeling from that unexpected disappearance decades before. A staircase appears again, and this time they're all going to go up the staircase and try and find their friend. My camera actually died, so I don't know what I was exactly saying about The Staircase in the Woods, but I did enjoy it. It wasn't my favorite Chuck Wendig, but I think it has like a really good blend of fantasy and horror, and if you like backrooms or any other sort of creepy pastas, then I think you could really enjoy this one. Overall, it was a great time, but that is going to be the end of this video. A lot of really exciting releases coming out in the month of April. Definitely let me know down below what you are most excited to check out. If you liked this video, please be sure to give it a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my content. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!